Hello, role-playing people, and this episode is a reply to some very dear listeners, 476 and Molly. 476 wanted to know how Torment affects evocations and how a Fallen might unwillingly use the high Torment version even when they mean well, and Molly wanted to know what types of settings and modes of gameplay there are for Demon besides the court politics type games. Alright, let's get right to answering. Torment mechanics, as presented in the core book, are pretty poorly written, which is why the writers saw fit to clarify and include them in the player's guide errata, which reads, "When making an evocation roll, compare your successes to your torment. If a majority of the successes you rolled shows numbers equal to or less than the character's torment, the high torment effect occurs. In the event of a tie, the low torment effect of the ritual is used." Example: Magdiel wishes to use Decay on the body of a cancer patient. Magdiel's stamina is 2 and her medicine is 3 for a total of 5 dice, and her current torment is 7. The difficulty for the roll is a standard 6. Adam rolls 3 successes, 7, 9, and 9. He has a majority of successes that are greater than his torment, so the evocation works as planned. If he'd rolled 6, 6, and 8, however, the high torment effect would have occurred, decaying everything around the character. So, now we know how Torment works, and it's needless to say, using these rules results in 2 things. 1. Involuntary uses of high torment evocations will only occur after the character's permanent torment exceeds the difficulty of the roll, something that happens after reaching a torment of 7, which means these dramatic setbacks will never occur for starting characters. And 2, some evocations don't have fixed but dynamic difficulties depending on the target of the ability, which means higher difficulty evocations will never result in involuntary high torment, since the difficulty threshold automatically exceeds the torment threshold, which actually diminishes the effects of torment even in great demon NPCs, which might have a torment rating of 7 or 8. For storytellers and players who want the characters to have a lot of control over their powers and almost non-existent drama in that department, using the Torment rules as written will cause you almost 0 problems. The characters will probably never be disempowered as a result of the Torment threshold, but if you're anything like our group and dramatic, sometimes tragic roles are something you welcome with open arms, here's how you can make the Torment threshold a thing even for starting characters. Let's take the same example. Magdiel wants to use Decay and has a dice pool of 5 dice. Now, this Magdiel's Torment rating is only 4, the standard starting Torment for Slayers. So the player, Adam, makes the roll. He scores 2 successes, a 6 and a 7. Good. Set those aside for now and let's look at the dice that didn't meet or exceed the difficulty threshold. If Magdiel has more failed dice under her Torment threshold than successes rolled, she accidentally uses the high Torment version. So if all the remaining unsuccessful dice are under 4 but over 1, so as not to cause a failure or a botch, Magdiel is just going to have a brief flash of pure rage as she's making use of the evocation, and Decay will pour out of her in all directions, breaking down everything around. If, on the other hand, at least 1 of her failed dice exceeds her Torment threshold and only 2 failed dice are under it, Magdiel uses the low Torment evocation, since Torment dice do not exceed successes. This only applies to successful rolls, of course. If no successes are rolled, then the evocation fails. If no successes are rolled and the player also has some 1s on the dice, then it's a botch. So the evocation fails and the temporary point of faith is also lost. As usual, ones are subtracted from successes rolled, since that is a core rule of all World of Darkness games, which means if you only have one success, you're in serious danger of accidentally using the high torment version of an evocation, which is why our group agreed that spending a temporary faith point for an automatic success on a low torment evocation renders that evocation immune to torment threshold rules, and it cannot result in a high torment effect unless the player intentionally wants to use the high torment effect. Of course, once the torment threshold exceeds the difficulty of the rolls, most of the evocations will be high torment. The challenge of implementing these rules is that you're not only looking for successes, but you need to keep track of every die rolled, the entire dice pool, and you're effectively using two difficulty thresholds, both of which the player wants to roll over. This means the players need to be very mindful of the rules and careful with the dice results, but if everyone is on board, the effects are, in brief, amazing. It adds an element of unpredictable drama and potential complication to every evocation roll, even at starting torment ratings, so you don't have to acquire 30 plus temporary torment points to make that kind of complication happen. On the downside, and this is a big downside, things get very nasty starting Torment 6 because every single die that results in a failure instead of a success is going towards the high torment pool. To be fair, in our games the protagonists didn't really get past Torment 5, even though they did some pretty nasty things. Of course, the player can buy off permanent torment for 10 XP a point, hopefully keeping the character from degenerating into a monster, but maybe that doesn't appeal to your group. I am well aware these house rules are far from perfect and they probably need some adjustment, but they really worked for us. I mean, having a Slayer unintentionally use the high torment version of the Lore of the Spirit, second evocation, in their own apartment, making the summoned spirit hostile, making it impossible for them to safely sleep in their own bed for a few nights. Yeah, those kind of things can be very interesting because they lead to unexpected interactions and probably some social consequences if word gets out that the Slayer can't even handle one spirit haunting their house. Complications of this sort are always welcome in our games, and like I said, they can always be bypassed by spending one temporary faith point for an automatic success. Now, if I had to change anything to these house rules, after having had a bit more experience with Demon, I would say making the torment threshold not equal to permanent torment rating, but maybe 1 or 2 lower. This will definitely prevent Torment from almost completely taking over evocations at a rating of 6. It won't be as present at lower ratings for starting characters, but I guess that's actually a good thing, since a Torment of 3 could be considered the equivalent of Humanity 7, so having less pronounced torment effects for starting characters makes a lot of sense. But hey, this is just our rules idea that we came up with years ago, and you can now take it, make it your own, adjust it, tweak it, and most likely make it better. If not, in light of the fact that Demon is a storytelling game of infernal glory, just using the Torment rules as written and corrected in the player's guide is a really good way to go. Alright, now let's have a look at a few game modes. Certainly, the court politics of Demon are very nice, but the storyteller doesn't have to prepare one or more courts for every single Demon game, because politics don't have to be the central element. Within the setting itself, courts take time to fully form, as the tyrant gathers their power and resources first and only then distributes responsibilities to those outside of their immediate circle, organizing and leading the larger court. If your game is set right after the 6th Maelstrom, 1999, there are no courts yet. when the protagonists are the very first wave of fallen to emerge from the pit without having been summoned, yeah, they have quite a bit of freedom, no one to boss them around or give them orders, but also they are the very first to discover the risks and dangers of the mortal world at the dawn of the new millennium. Introductory scenarios will most likely go in two ways. First, the psychological horror route, where you emphasize the confusion of this resulting demon-human hybrid who probably has no idea they are more than human at this point. Tone down the supernatural aspect of the character and watch the protagonist try to make sense of the trauma that led to their possession. Maybe it was what they perceive as a very blurry near-death experience, intentional or unintentional. Maybe it's a critical point in the mortal's struggle with declining mental health, or maybe they were just in someone's way and had to be taken off the board. They can't really remember what happened, but hey, it's a miracle they're alive. And then, as if a red-hot nail is driven through their temples, the protagonist starts having some very disturbing memories, flashbacks, and dreams. They might have difficulty doing their job or be very much tempted to seek help. But even as that's going on, they come to realize they are actually no longer themselves, but something else, something that has its own distinct memories besides almost complete access to the host's memories. So yeah, this amnesia route is very nice, and it can be an almost poetic, slow burn psychological game where not much happens, but the mood is breathtaking. Second, you can skip all that dramatic slow burn stuff and go full God among men. The world is your playground. It's quite a bit like what you'd see in Lucifer, the TV series, the devil who seemingly just wants to have fun. In this case, the character remembers what they are to a high degree, and well, they're free to do whatever they please, making pacts, reaping faith, solving mysteries and murders, helping or ruining individual human lives, whatever strikes the storytellers and the players' fancy. For players who want an empowering introductory experience, making whatever they will of the setting, this is it right here. But eventually, the naive fun will have to come to an end. With introductions out of the way, we can take a look at the actual meat of the Chronicle. Maybe you want more of a faction game where all the protagonists are part of the same faction and tasked with a certain mission. That works beautifully for shorter, more linear chronicles. From investigating rumors or laying low and gathering information, to taking out a powerful target or preparing all the necessary elements for a grandiose summoning ritual. Faction stories always work very well because there's no ideological conflict between protagonists and they serve the same faction leader. Their mission might be a bit more general, for lack of a better term, or it might be faction specific. For cryptics, it might be tied to their lists of names, the Celestinomicon and Crucianomicon. For Faustians, it might be to deliver as many faithful mortals to faith research facilities as possible, and for reconcilers it might be precisely to liberate those very mortals who are used as test subjects by the Faustians. Almost every faction can serve as the antagonist for another faction, with the Raveners taking the cake as the go-to antagonists number one. But say this game mode doesn't really appeal to you. Alright, you can unite protagonists from different factions and face them with a grand, super important mystery, maybe something tied to the Umbra, some hidden realm that no one seems to be aware of, or they find an entrance to a bastion, one of the rebel or loyalist fortresses from during the war. This actually works very well with more action-adventure oriented players who might come from D&D, let's say. If they want to go dungeoneering and mystery solving, fighting for their lives in weird pocket realms that have been abandoned for millennia, but might still be guarded by strange malefactor constructs, or eternally vigilant scourge spirits, or undead monsters created using the lore of flesh or the lore of death or whatnot, yeah, Demon the Fallen can totally do that. Going Tomb Raider through weird extra-dimensional bastions is a lot of fun, and it leans heavily into the more supernatural or otherwise fantasy side of the game. If you want to have a big bad antagonist with a blend between mundane and supernatural, having some earthbound cult either recruiting or intimidating the protagonists shortly after they arrive into the world is not only a great opener, but a great ongoing conflict, even for longer chronicles. Lesser demons will probably always be united by a serious common threat, whether it's the politically sophisticated court tyrant and their retinue, or the Lovecraftian earthbound horror and its spine-chilling cult. From here, it can go a few ways. It can turn into a survival horror, escape from Innsmouth style game where, despite the protagonist's supernatural powers, the earthbound is just too powerful and they barely make it out alive to tell the tale and warn others. Or, on the other hand, it becomes an action movie, and the protagonists decide to go toe-to-toe with the Earthbound, not stopping until that reliquary is in pieces. You can expect combat, maybe betrayal, a lot of lores being used, supernatural weapons, explosions, cultists dying left and right. Yeah, you can go nuts with this one. Demon superhero action flicks can totally be a thing. But, yet again, maybe playing Vin Diesel and Matt Damon demons isn't really the infernal glory you envisioned. Maybe you want to have some version of the Masquerade in your game, urging the protagonists to be more discreet. Perfect. You can ramp that up and say some secret worldwide organization of exorcists is well aware of the fact that demons are coming out of the pit. You can even use the technocracy from Mage the Ascension or something similar, but the point is, some insanely powerful worldwide organization is actively hunting demons. This is great for those who want to bring a little feel of the Matrix into their game. You're a small group of fallen desperately trying to find faithful mortals in a very hostile environment, in an almost completely faithless world where indiscretion means death. You try to do good, healing someone's incurable physical condition, but oh no, the event makes the news. So now, fanatical exorcist Agent Smith types are after you because you made too much noise. Works like a charm for any group that wants to have that on the run, keep moving and don't let them find you kind of game. Now, let's say collaboration is just not on the menu for your protagonists. Although it might be a little tricky, you can run a PvP Chronicle. Our group is actually pretty excited to try an all Earthbound game where every protagonist is trying to destroy the others, either devouring their souls or ruining their cults and sending them into slumber. This game mode would feel almost like a board game instead of a role-playing game, with the storyteller being more of a referee and just arbitrating over the different tactics and resources the Earthbound monsters throw at each other. We can imagine a lot of the roleplay aspect is going to come not from playing the Earthbound itself, because that one is locked away in its reliquary, but from playing the cult priests or lesser demon servants, which is actually a lot of fun. On the other hand, maybe you don't even want to play a fallen, but a mortal thrall who is forced to obey their demonic master under threat of being ravaged for faith. And this demonic master can be a lesser fallen or an earthbound. That's also an option. And of course, there's always the court systems, which can be more or less present in your game, since they are mostly tied to the Luciferian faction. You can do more politics, more of demons using their influence over mortal institutions, staying hidden, you know, the vampire stuff, or less politics, but simply using the tyrant to keep characters from rival factions from jumping at each other's throats, at least in a certain location or a city. Last but not least, you can throw the Sixth Maelstrom metaplot into the trash altogether and let your demons escape from the pit be a complete mystery. What's certain is some escaped, but how that happened, no one knows. Maybe you want a more historical setting for your Fallen, a Dark Ages demon game, or a Victorian Age demon game, or a post-apocalyptic game set in the not-so-distant future. And yes, you can do that just as well, with or without Lucifer, with or without canonical characters. So let's recap. What kind of games can Demon do? Dramatic, slow burn, psychological, Lovecraftian horror, celestial superheroes, supernatural exploration with a lot of dungeoneering and traps and monsters, fast-paced action with explosions, single faction or multi-faction, with courts or without courts, stealth survival games where breaking the masquerade is almost certain death. You can do crossover with other World of Darkness games, pre-apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic, daily life pact simulator, but ultimately, and this is what I love doing the most, all of the above. I mean, there's no good reason why the Slayer protagonist can't be part of a faction and a court, struggling to make pacts of faith, trying to have some semblance of a normal relationship with the host's family, which they love very much, while also investigating the deeper Low Umbra, a place that is currently unexplored, shrouded in danger and mystery, with the Tempest being worse than ever. There's no reason why a malefactor smith of a local court can't discover a path that leads into a bastion or into some strange extra-dimensional realm that other Fallen just missed. Once they explore that place and neutralize the threats, they can claim the bastion for their house or faction, or maybe report their findings to their local tyrant. Demons are political beings and beings of hierarchy, so that element should be present in one way or another. But they also have an exceptional awareness for supernatural things, so having a more pronounced supernatural aspect doesn't feel out of place in this game. This is why I'm currently struggling with writing a recap for our Chronicles, even though I started working on that more than a year ago. In just 20 sessions, or something along those lines, so much has happened, and it means a lot to the characters on a personal level that, yeah, I just haven't found a way to sum all of that up. The protagonists are super complex, and they can offer a wide range of personal points of view, very distinct flavors, while the world itself can show a different face or tone once every few sessions. It can be threatening, Machiavellian, hopeless, disempowering, and then a few sessions down the road, depending on which other Fallen appear into the world, it might be romantic, empowering, fantastic, and playfully mysterious, and so on. The range of stories you can tell using Demon the Fallen without invalidating the canon and metaplot in any way is astounding. It's huge. And I'm saying this as someone who predominantly enjoys playing setting as written or metaplot as written, and just trying to do the game justice, really. That being said, I'm very happy you left comments and invited me to share some thoughts on these matters, Torment rules, and various game modes. I really enjoyed replying. So thank you very much for listening. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.